pre-sketch before you put your pigment on your page? Do you ever find that that feels like you're being hampered, you're not getting that loose, intuitive flow that you're looking for? I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. I'm Lynda Norman, and I'm a watercolor artist in the beautiful province of British Columbia. Today we're exploring using the Hake brush, keeping things loose and intuitive. Well, accomplices, I'm excited to play a little bit with the Hake brush today. It's one of my favorite ways to paint. I love the loose, intuitive flow that it allows me to achieve, and you know, it's something I go to often, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about a message I got from Bobby, who said, well, if the bristles fall out of your Hake brush, you could have a Hake stick, and you'll fit right in up there in Canada. So I thought that was pretty hilarious. I loved that. Thank you, Bobby, for that suggestion. I'll keep that in mind. You know, these do tend to lose bristles on occasion. This one not so much. It's from Pro Art. It's a Ron Ranson brand. I don't know that they're available any longer. Ron Ranson has passed away some time ago, so I don't know where they're available. If you ever see one, you might want to grab one. They're not costly, and they are a workhorse. They hold tons and tons of water. This one has lots of, I call it real estate, lots of real estate on the end of it, so you can get lots of stipple power, lots of coverage. Really, one of the best tools I have in my studio. So we're going to paint loose and intuitive. We're not going to pre-sketch. If you know me at all, you know that that's not what I prefer to do. There are times when I like to sketch on greeting cards or smaller items. Once in a while, if I want to. I was just mentioning to Lorenz that I have a. There we go. This one here. I'm doing some mushrooms for a festival that's coming up, and so with this one I did sketch two little lines there just to keep. When I was doing my sky and my background, I didn't want to necessarily, you know, slop into that area. So that's what I would do there. But it generally not something I prefer to do. I'm like Jamelia, who said she just likes to, they just like to just jump right in, and that's what I do. So with the Hake brush, it's fun, it's simple, it's a quick way to paint. I'm going to use my standard color palette. These are my favorites. I have updated them recently to include a cobalt blue and a few other changes, but hang on a second. I lied. I'm looking at it and it's like I did put cobalt blue in my new palette, but then I changed it out to another color. So we've got some other colors, and this one's, there we go. We'll use this one today. French Ultramarine is the color that I've added to this one. The cobalt is lovely. I just found, for me, in the way I paint, I like the deeper colors, so I put the French Ultramarine in there. So that's what I'm going to use today. Painting loose and intuitive. Sometimes I just get the paint down and let it do what it wants to do. Great example for that is some of the paintings that I do on canvas. This is on paper. This is on 100% cotton paper. I've been using this a fair bit lately. It's the Magnani 1404 Toscana brand. It's 300 GSM, 140 pound, 100% cotton paper. This is a block, and it's a rough grain. I like the block. It's glued on all sides except for this one little corner, and that can be lifted once it's dry. You just stick a palette knife under there. I like the block because if you leave your painting on the block until it's dry, any buckling that happens will just flatten right out, and you'll go back to a nice flat surface. I like the rough surface. especially for loose and intuitive painting, the little divots in the paper, it's kind of allow the pigment in the water to move around a little bit differently than if you were painting on a hot press smooth surface. That would be more suitable for more detailed painting. And I just am not, I'm not so much a detail painter. I can do it, and I have done it. It just doesn't bring me as much satisfaction, I think. And one of the reasons I paint loose and intuitive is time, honestly. I'm a busy nana. I have grandkids, and I have, you know, a husband and a puppy, and we're just always busy. So finding the time to sit and sketch and then have that sketch, I mean, I could sketch and then come back to it another day, but often I'm painting intuitively. So a sketch that I might have done on Tuesday, on Friday just I might not be feeling it. So I just like to sit down and explore my paints and the water and the paper and just let things flow. So I'm doing a fairly liberal covering of water to my page. And I think, as usual, I'll just take it right to the bottom because I like to sort of mirror, in my landscapes, I like to mirror the sky into the foreground. Still don't know what that's going to look like at this point in time. But with this Hake brush, I can start laying in color. And I generally start with the sky. I love the sky. I love watching clouds, even at night, when the moon shines on clouds and you can see the highlights and the lowlights and the shapes that they form and the colors. During the day, sometimes, lately here in the Okanagan Valley where we are, have been out of this world. If I think of it, I will share some of those at the end of the video. So, typical sky for me starts with a Mayan dark blue. I'm just going to, I don't know if you can see this palette. See that there? I'm not sure. I'm just going to take a bit of the Mayan dark blue off to the side, and then I'm going to just dab into the ultramarine. It's just going to lighten that up and brighten that up just a tiny bit. Don't know where the best place is for you to see that, but so I'm getting my sky in. I'm starting from the edge. I don't like to start in the middle of a page, and especially because this is buckling, I wouldn't want to start a dab in the middle and have a chunk of color just kind of sitting there that's not going to disperse. Some colors are more staining than others, and that really becomes a problem then if you get one of those colors sort of stuck in the middle of your piece. And I just want to dab one more time into the Mayan dark blue just to get a bit of other darkness coming through. And we'll make it a little bit uneven. And we'll bring this right down lightly to the bottom. If this turns out to be a lake, which it very often does, or a river, or some sort of a body of water, then this lighter blue will serve its purpose well there. If we decide at some point it needs to be a meadow or a piece of land, then that blue will be lovely with whatever colors we add to it. All right. At this point, I had enough moisture on the page that I'm not going to worry about. I didn't worry about putting an extra coat on. Sometimes, especially with 100% cotton paper, you can put a light coat on, let it sink in, and then wait a few moments, and then apply another color. This, obviously, my Hake brush allowed me to get enough water on there that things are buckling. I've dampened my paper towel. This is how I like to make my clouds. Keeps things loose and intuitive. So the paper towel is dampish. It's not dripping wet. It's just damp, and it allows me to sort of fold it so it's got a little more rounded edges. If I was to fold the paper towel and crunch it up dry, it would have sort of angular edges, which is fine as well. It just depends on how you like to place your clouds. And so just by going in and I don't change the surface. I'm still, you know, using that same bit with the little bit of blue coloring on there that I'm picking up off the page. And I just kind of imagine where some of these clouds might want to be. And some of them are a little bit fluffy, and the water will continue to sort of move things around a little tiny bit, but you've got enough whiteness of the paper coming through now that you've dabbed some of that out. And that's probably all I would do with that sky. Leave a little darkness over in that corner. Now with my Hake brush, and I don't know whether we can see that, all these colors or not, but so I'm going to go in now and put in some mountains. I've got Mayan dark blue on my Hake brush, just on the tip. I don't saturate the whole brush. I don't use the whole bristle. I'm using the tip of the bristle, and I'm just going to shape some mountain forms. Turn the brush around a little bit. That gives me a bit more darkness on my surface. I am just dabbing the paint on. There's enough water on the page. It's going to continue things moving, and I can turn my brush on an angle on the side, on all different areas. Use the brush to its full advantage. I like to have the mountains in the background, you know, a little bit uneven. Looks like they might have some trees on them. We can go back in afterwards and definitely create more of those. Right up into the, let's see, I've touched the, this is probably not the right brush, but I wanted to get that little dab that I dropped in there, and of course now I've created a bloom. Never fear. We're going to take a dry brush, and this is similar to a Hake brush. It's just a little bit finer bristle. And you know what? If this doesn't work, because we're painting loose and intuitive, my intuition tells me that I can just put another mountain in front, right? So it's all is not lost. But I think I've managed to pull out enough of that wetness that I had dropped in there, trying to get rid of that little dot of color. And we can have some clouds. All right. We can go back in afterwards, and create more definition. But what this is allowing here is just a nice soft gray blue background, and the Mayan dark blue is beautiful for this. You could also use a Payne's blue gray, which is a combination of, I think, ultramarine and burnt umber, perhaps, or yellow ochre. I'm not sure, but you can mix your soft diffusing blues. And I like to keep things off center slightly, and not, you know, I wouldn't want anything converging in the middle, dead center either. So I try to keep things a little bit more uneven. And I think, just for interest's sake, we should put something in here, perhaps a little lake shore. So I'll bring this down on this side with a little more of the Mayan dark blue. I'm putting this in just loosely and randomly, because these dark shades will turn out to be the shadows that will define some of the shrubbery and some of the things that we have growing around our lake. Okay, so playing a little Hake as we do. And yeah, I will keep that in mind. If this brush ever loses all its bristles, Bobby, I will definitely turn it into a Hake stick, and it will have a place in my studio. That sounds like fun. All right. So these little dark patches will be, as I said, they will be the underside of, whoops, that kind of dabbed into the blue, ultramarine blue, but that's okay. And I do want just a little bit of a bit more of the dark blue, just shadowy undergrowth. And then I think, because I love to do rocks, I'm going to fill this area in here. Here's another example of where I did not tape the page off to be a specific size to fit in a mat. Fortunately, I have a great friend here in Kelowna, Roger Lee, who has a little art framing business called Art Framer, and he's able to cut mats to specific sizes for me, and so that's always a lifesaver when I forget to tape off the edges. He'll make it work. He's a magician when it comes to those things. All right. I think because I want these to be rocks, I'm probably going to get those other colors that I used to make my rocks in there now. And I typically use a little bit of undersea green, and while I've got that color out, I will go in and, still with my Hake brush, undersea green dabbed on the end of my brush, and this will form the next level of trees that are closer to me. Okay. At this point, I can decide what my third color will be, and usually 3 colors is ample for a painting. Once in a while, I will get the third color in. Very often it's quinacridone gold because I love how it interacts with the Mayan dark blue and the undersea green. But sometimes after I get that in, I'll put in a little quinacridone rose or quinacridone purple. The quinacridones are beautifully formulated paints, especially the Daniel Smith brand, that I just love how they play together on the page and add that little pop of color. So I think with these little rocks in the front, I will do the quinacridone gold, and it just takes a couple of small dabs. Again, just on the tip of my brush, and a little tiny bit into my forest, just to show some highlights in those trees. The quinacridone gold tends to push away. It gives you a sense of light happening on your page. Now I could leave this as a bush, but I love showing people how to do these rocks because they are so fun to do. And the pigments have sat for just a few moments. I like them to be damp. I like to see the page glistening. I don't want puddling because when the pigments are sitting there in puddles, by pushing them around with this little piece of plastic, the puddles just kind of become puddles in different places. Whereas if it's at a certain level of wetness and dryness, we can allow those wetter areas to become the shadows underneath some of the rocks. Okay. And I'll try left-handed. We'll see how that works. One day I'm going to paint a whole painting left-handed. See how that works. That'd be fun. Or not. We'll see. We will see. So again, I'm painting this right to the edge, which is probably a no-no, but that's all right. I'm doing it. So I've got a little bit of rocks there, which is kind of fun. I'm going to carry that. There's enough pigment on there, I can carry that just sort of across the bottom here. I think before we lose too much of this beautiful kind of edge here, I will go in with, let me think, whoops, how that's going to work. I would like a flat brush, and I had one out earlier. I don't know what I've done with it. Let me see if I can use this one. This will work. I'm going to dampen the brush. It's again one of the brights. I think they're called a bright. They're an acrylic brush. Stiff bristles. When they're damp, they come to a nice point on the edge, and they are great for carving out lines, lifting paint. And when I look at this, I kind of like how the paint that's on the forested area is kind of flowing down into the lake. And so I can use that if I decide to carve my shoreline up here. That will look like a reflection in the water. So here we have it. We have water. We don't have a meadow. And I think that's why I just love to do this. Now this kind of falls at an angle. I try to keep my horizon lines horizontal. And so I don't want to make a line like that. It will throw the perspective off. So I'm just going to come in this way, horizontally. And we can pull that across, bring it in a little bit of irregularity. And then that will indicate more shore areas. We'll pull that back right through into there. This is a different level as well. So again, when you're creating your shorelines, if you're looking at a shoreline in a photograph or in real life, you'll see that there's different levels. The shore comes, in and out, and so you can create that by moving your line back and forth. So that these little lines, as simple as they are, give you that depth, that perception of depth happening in your... And then just a slight, barely touching the page, and short strokes so that you can keep them horizontal. I know, when you're looking at ripples in the water, they have that circular effect. But when you're looking at a distance like this, I think I find that it's most effective to just keep those little wave lines, sort of the way of the shoreline, sort of nice and straight. We'll put a little edge there and pull that out. This has got a bit of a bloom on it, pardon me, so I'm just going to go in and I'm going to pull that edge of that bloom out so that shadow looks like it's coming right out into the water. Okay. Now our water here is pretty pale. I'm seeing that that's probably not going to be the best thing for my eye. I want to see something a little bit more colorful. Because I've got green in my trees, I'm going to go in to the undersea green. I'm just going to lightly put the tiniest bit in there. I'm going to go back into this mixture that I had of the French ultramarine blue and the Mayan dark blue, and I'm just going to dab that in very, very lightly. And I'm just, here's where the buckling on the page can act to your advantage. I'm just letting my brush skip across the page. And I want to go this way because I want to bring that back. And I'll pull. Now I'm going to dry my brush. You can see where adding that little tiny bit of color, just where it hit randomly on the page, allows that white or lighter area to sort of shine through and sparkle through. That's going to add to the dimension of the painting as well. Just want to go in on the edge and pull that. My brush is very, very dry, just barely damp. And that's going to allow me with the lightest of touches to just get those colors. See, it's a bit damper than I thought, and it tried to create a bloom there, but I caught it. All right. And then because we have a little bit of a white touch there, I will touch this way. The tendency to make your shadows come down is to do this, but I find that's better left just to that paint that's been sitting there. I can soften the edges a tiny bit. But that's all I want to do with that. And here we have a bit more water. And that's the thing that, I've said before, you need to keep your head on a swivel almost and keep an eye for these blooms and things that happen. And because this was a divot in the little buckling in the paper, I do want to take that out, and I will just, as light as possible, just encourage that water to move along. This is kind of fun the way it's pulling out, so I'm just going to continue on with that. I love how that, pigment is lifting there. And then we will go back in with this fellow and just once again, just clarify a little bit of that, that shoreline. Any place you see that there might be a bloom or a blossom, just the softest touch, semi-dry brush. There's a bit of a line there, and I'm not sure why that was happening. It could have been just, for some reason, the pigment wanted to stain slightly, but that's okay. I do want to maintain this back shoreline here, so I'm going to enforce that just again with some little lines. And I don't join the lines, let them sort of fade into nothing. Leave a little bit to the imagination. Okay. So that's loose and intuitive. The only other thing I would probably do now is with my Lebanson 1.5 inch goat synthetic blend that I would not be without. I will go in and just define a couple of the treetops, and I will always, as always, start with my Mayan dark blue, and maybe a bit wetter. There we go. This is a fun exercise when you're trying to make trees and things a little bit more specific. Take a piece of test paper and practice with the amount of water and pigment that you need on your brush, whatever brush you decide to use, and see what works best for giving you the shapes that you need. And this one is I kind of like making half trees almost. This one's going to be just coming up out of nowhere, and we'll put another one here. Nothing really specific. We just want the indication that yes, there's a tree, and this one's going to come down here. Maybe we'll add another one on the side here. Just those will fade off quite nicely, and just the odd place where those darker shadows that we created before with just dabbing the paint in, I will just continue to make them look a little more like trees. Again, keeping them quite loose. Nice to have a few, different options. If I think those would be too dark, I can just give them a little dab, and then that the paper towel if you use it scrunched up and don't get too worried about making it precise, it can take out bits of pigment randomly, and it gives you that really organic shape that you might want to incorporate into your painting. So from here, look at what your paints have left for you to work with. Enhance a few of them. Play around. You can darken some of the shorelines if you want. Sometimes taking things out, removing pigment can really be effective as well. A little dab there. Shows a little treetop. The rest of these could easily be more bushy, and I kind of like that idea. Make sure I'm not touching anything wet. Just these ones that are kind of sticking out in nowhere, I would just encourage them to look a little more tree-like. And there's one going way up there. Look at that. Rather than try to get that little tiny drop of color off of there, I'm just going to turn it into a tree. So I guess intuitive isn't 100% correct, because some of it is, you're sort of following the dictation of the pigments and the water. So basically, it's just having fun, enjoying the paints, the pigments. Make it your design. If you see a tree, make a tree. If you see a rock, make a rock. Often the little flecks of color that have sort of flown off my brush and landed in the sky become birds. I think that's the beauty of not sketching ahead of time. One of the beauties, there's so many for me, is that you're not locked in. You have the freedom. You can create, and it's your creation. Not dictated by any lines on a page, not restricted by any lines on the page, which is the big thing for me. I find that restriction is really detrimental, I think, to the creative flow sometimes. All right, so yeah, a little tweaking maybe with some of the water lines at the bottom here, but I do really love how this is kind of just created its own little shoreline area. Probably not another color would come into this. If I did, perhaps a little bit of purple or something just to make it pop. But I just love this. It could be framed. It could turn into something. I don't know if I've got a mat here or not, but I might play around with it a little bit more after the video here, and we'll pop up the finished piece at the end. Yeah, we'll just see where it ends up. A little dab here, a little dab there. I love the sky. I love skies, and so that's, if I have a happy sky, a good sky that feels good to me, then that's, for me, that's 80% of my job done. Give it a try. Take your Hake brush for a spin. Use your favorite pigments on your favorite paper, and just let some color lead the way. I'd like to thank the Process Art Discovery audience for joining me today. We've had some fun exploring loose and intuitive painting. I hope you pursue some of that yourself. It's so full of joy and freedom, and being able to be loose and intuitive. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe to the channel, visit their website, or head on over to their members area.